guys, so it's Jake Joseph here, and I wanted to do another YouTube video on homelessness and my experiences with homelessness. I know a lot of people are struggling with this right now because of everything that's happened in the coronavirus, and I can try and give some advice along the way, but mainly I'm here today to just share my experiences with you guys. Because there's a lot of people out there, especially when you're homeless, it really feels like there is nobody that understands and there is nobody that you can talk to. And even people who, you know, if, for example, if you live in a homeless shelter, you can't talk to those people there. I'm not on about the support workers, I'm on about other residents, because it is every man or every woman for themselves in that situation, and it shouldn't be like that. We should all be helping each other, working together to get everybody off the streets and, you know, back into independent living. So before we talk about homelessness, I do have a shop now which is called Viva MK Survivors Elite. The link is in the description below. It's like an Avon thing. Just ask me for the online catalog. If I could get my words out, the online catalogs. Just ask me for the link. I'll give you the link. You can have a browse through, and I do orders most of the days of the week. So just send me a message and we'll go from there. So I mentioned in a recent video, not a recent video actually, this video was about a year ago, and I was talking about homelessness experiences. So I kind of want to dive into them in a little bit more detail, but more talking about today my last experience homeless, because my last one was the worst, and yeah, I'll get to that shortly. So when I was 16, I was moved out of foster care, you see, because I was in foster care from 13 to 16. So I moved out of foster care at 16 years old, not long before I turned 17, and I was put into a hostel, which is, if you're not from the UK, I'm sure you know what a hostel, basically a homeless shelter, and yeah, not the best places to live in, but let me tell you, and you know, for anyone watching that has been homeless shelters are a lot better than living on the streets. Some might disagree, some might agree, but it's my opinion, and it's much better having a roof over your head than worrying about, you know, what park bench you're going to sleep on that night, or when your next meal is coming from. So when I was 16, I lived in the Birmingham area of the UK, and I stayed in a hostel. It was like a hostel sort of supported living, and that was in the Highgate area of Birmingham. I won't say what place it was, but is where I stayed, and I was there for about 9 months. And to be honest, going from foster care, you know, where I was well looked after, and I was really lucky with foster care, because I had two really amazing foster families. I was with one of them for 2.5 years and the other one for about 8 or 9 months, and they were both so good to me, you know. And I'm a father, right, to a 6-year-old, a son who's almost 6, and you know, there's things that I say to my son and I look back and I think, you know, my foster parents used to say that to me. And you get it, you know what I mean. But back then, when I was a 16-year-old kid, it was a little bit different. I didn't have any sort of clue about that type of lifestyle, you know, street life or anything like that at the time. So I was kind of just thrown into this world, man. And you know, it was not a nice experience, man. I was a 16-year-old kid. You know, I had my door kicked off. I didn't have a front door for a long time. I had my everything, and I mean everything, in my room, because I used to go and stay out on the weekends, and I'd come back and every single time my room would be cleared. And you know, what could I do, man? I was 16 years old, and you know, there was people in their late 20s in the same place, so you know, there's not much I could do to be honest. And yeah, the support staff at that place at that time when I was 16, they were not helpful at all. They'd turn up for an hour a day, yeah, do a bit of paperwork and then leave, and there was no support whatsoever. So you know, I really felt trapped in that place. And you know, there's probably people out there right now that are in a similar hostel or a similar shelter of some kind, and you know, they're fearing for their lives, and all they want to do is stay safe and get their own place. People, they judge the homeless a lot, and I've experienced this many times over the years. You know, really shallow people out there that will, you know, they'll go out of their way to make the homeless, their lives a lot more difficult, and it just makes no sense to me. But I don't want to get off subject too much. So yeah, that was one of the many bad experiences I had in that first hostel when I was 16. There was many suicide attempts, a lot of violence, and it just wasn't a nice place to be. So after about 9 months of living there, I left voluntarily, and at that point I was living rough for a while. I was, you know, sofa surfing between friends, just looking for the next sofa to sleep on and things like that. Or, you know, there was a time where I have slept outside. I'm not gonna absolutely chat shit and say that you know, I've lived on the streets for months at a time, but I've spent weeks on the streets and weeks in a park bench down in Woodgate Valley in Quinton, if anyone knows that, in the Birmingham area of the UK. So, you know, I've had my fair share of rough sleeping, you can say. So the advice I want to give on that part, because I'm going to try and do this in parts if I can, is basically, if you're young and you're 16, you know, 16 to 21, 22, and you're in one of these places and you're fearing for your life, then you do need to raise these concerns. And I know what you're thinking, oh, you know, I can't snitch, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. But some things in life are more important than any street code bullshit or street code reputation or something. Don't snitch, don't do this, don't that. I'm not going out of my way and saying go and tell on every single person that does something wrong to you. What I'm saying to you is you need to protect yourself, man. And it is important to do that in those places. And these days people are a lot more understanding when people feel threatened in homeless shelters. So often or not, you will get moved to another one, and you know, the quality of the place that you're in might not be as good as the one you were in before, but it's not the point. The point is you always have to make sure that you feel at least a little bit safe in these places, and safe for long enough until you move on to the next place, which hopefully would be your own independent living accommodation. So then, that brings me to the next time I was homeless, which was a bit of a difficult time. I was 19 years old, and I was gotta get this right now, because there's been a lot of situations that I've got myself into over the years, especially when I was a teenager. And I definitely paid the consequences for them too. So I was 19, I believe, or 20. I might have been a little bit older, maybe even 20 or 21. And I was working in this printing factory at the time. It was a dead-end job. I was, you know, getting about £450 a month at the time. This was, you know, going on 10 years ago now. It just wasn't right for me. I could feel my mental health deteriorating, but I didn't quite know it at the time. You know, I've always known I've struggled mentally, but, you know, actually accepting that I've struggled mentally, with the type of life I was living back then, it wouldn't have been a good idea for me to come out and speak about, especially to the type of crowd I was hanging around with. You know, things probably would have ended up a lot worse for me at that time. So in the type of situation I was in, I couldn't really say anything because, well, that's how I felt. I felt like I couldn't say anything. Not I actually couldn't. It was just I was worn down too much. So the job at the printing factory was not going well at all. I wasn't getting enough money to pay the rent in the house I was living in at the time. The relationship I was in at the time, I was being cheated on multiple times, which wasn't adding to my stress, because the woman I was with at the time, it felt like she was the only person I could go to get away from the problems I was having at work and the problems I was having in the shared house. So you could see that I put a hell of a lot of trust there, because that was my comfort space. And then it turns out I was being cheated on, so everything come crumbling down at once. And you know, I couldn't go and live back with my mum at this time, as mine and my mum's relationship over the years since I was very young has been extremely complicated and would probably need a whole series of videos on that, so we won't get into that. So I was homeless again, and I think I just broke down more so when I was 21 at that time, you know, when this situation was going on. I think I more broke down than anything. I gave up. I completely gave into everything. I remember I was in the back garden of the house I was living in at the time, and I just started crying, and I thought that, you know, I ain't cried since I was a kid. But at that time, at that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do was just let it all out, and I did let it all out. But then I kind of spiraled out of control, because, you know, I had about £500 in my bank at the time, I remember. And I just, you know, I found the proof that the girlfriend at the time was cheating. I packed up all my stuff while she was sleeping, and I jumped on the first train to London. And I don't know why I went to London. It was Peterborough, you know, pretty close to London, not too far away. And I was in Peterborough, and I just found myself there. And, you know, luckily for me, I knew somebody on Facebook who lived up there, so I had a place to stay for around about 6 weeks. But I was just drinking and smoking and completely out of control. I wasn't thinking about my future. I left everything behind for the wrong reasons and with no plan of going forward. And it just, as you can tell, ended up in a complete train wreck. So I ran out of money eventually to buy alcohol and weed. So what happened, you know, I've got to come home. And then I was on the job seekers at the time, so, you know, it's going 10 years ago now, and I was there, and I went to the job centre, and when I got there, just come back from Peterborough, they told me I wasn't getting any money anymore, so any job seekers allowance. And again, I just broke down again. I just went back home and cried, and I went back home to my mum at this point. You know, that's how desperate things were at the time. And my mum saw me, you know, she saw me. I was a complete broken man at 21 years old. And, you know, I knew what I had to do. I knew I had to rebuild all over again. And it kind of got into this pattern by that point where I had to rebuild, but it was kind of like an autopilot thing to destruct again. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I would always get to this point where I would rebuild my life and I would be happy, but then I'd be thinking, what's next? And if I couldn't think of what was next, I'd end up getting bored of the level I was at, and I'd end up spiraling back down. And I would self-sabotage things for myself a lot of the time. Like, you know, if I had a job or something like that, I just wouldn't turn up. I just wouldn't. And, you know, or I'd do 3-4 days and have a day off and think that was all right. And then go in the next week and have another day off, or phone in sick for 2 days, and, you know, things like that. And I think it's fine, nothing to worry about. I don't care. I'll get another job. I don't care. I'll do this. And the attitude was all wrong. And I look back now and I think to myself, at 21 years old, I thought I was quite mature and I was on my way in life. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I could not have been more wrong looking back now, because I was broken and so on and so on. I had to go into another hostel, and this time I was up nearby the Birmingham City football ground, and there was a hostel up there. But this time I had a different attitude, and again I made mistakes again, because I've been in homeless shelters before, and I know exactly what the type of people that are in there. And I don't mean that in a I mean that as in, you know, the way people present themselves, and, you know, street life kind of people in there. And, you know, a lot of people that have hung around in the streets all their life, or have come from areas where, you know, you just mold yourself into gangs really, or into groups, and you know, things happen, you grow up and life is the way it is. But what people don't realise is a lot of these people are good people. They really are. And you'll meet someone sometimes and you will be surprised, because you think they're going to come up to you with the attitude like they're going to stab you, but it's not the case a lot of the time. So my mistake this time around was going to this other hostel, was thinking I was too big for my boots. Now, I can handle myself, I've got no problem with doing that, but when you walk into these places, there's always going to be someone bigger than you. And, you know, luckily for me, I never got knocked out, or I always avoided fights and stuff like that, as in, like, you know, things never escalated as far where I'd have to fight or anything like that, so I'm thankful. But my attitude was all wrong in this place. And after about 3 months of being in this hostel, which was one of the nicest hostels I've been in, by the way, I finally left to a flat. And yeah, I finally got my own flat at 22 years old. And I finally got my flat at 22 years old, and of course things went wrong again, and pretty much my own fault, because this time around I had gotten a job, a good job with good pay, but I was refusing to pay my rent. And, you know, these are all honest mistakes that I'm saying on these videos, and believe me, I paid the prices for them, and I've definitely had to repay the price of the rent and stuff like that. So, you know, I've made up for my mistakes and sins and whatever, but I didn't pay my rent, and, you know, I could see myself falling and falling and falling into this circle again. And when I got to 25 years old, I just thought to myself, you know, what am I doing? Because I'm in this situation again. I'm now 25, so at 16, at 19, at 21, and at 25, I find myself in the same situation where I'm not only homeless, but I'm having to rebuild my life all over again. And I'm just absolutely sick and tired of it. And that's what I kept saying to myself. I'm sick and tired of doing this. I'm tired of trying. I'm tired of feeling nothing. I'm feeling emptiness, feeling lost, out of place in the world. And most importantly, feeling full of hate, so much hate inside of me. It wasn't good, and I used to think to myself, why don't people like me? Why don't people want to hang around with me for too long? And I just looked myself in the mirror one day and I said, it's because I'm not a nice guy. Do you know, I'm not. And maybe it's not my fault at the time because of all the mental health struggles that I was going through. And all the trauma that was following me through years and years and years that I didn't go and get help for. You know, it made me into this miserable, stuck-up guy, and I didn't know how to have fun anymore. I'd lost that part of myself. So at 25 years old, when I find myself again in the reception area of a homeless shelter, signing the paperwork, the tenancy paperwork on my son's 3rd birthday, having to miss my son's 3rd birthday to sign the tenancy for a homeless shelter, I had never been so low. I'd never felt so low. I had never been to such depths like I went to on that day. The life was sucked out of me for a really long time. To then 6 months later being told that I need to have major reconstruction surgery on my foot. I can no longer go back to the job I was doing for 8 years. You know, that career's over now. And if I don't have this reconstruction surgery, then I may not be walking by the time I'm 30. So I'm faced with all these problems again, and life has hit me in the face again. And, you know, this time around, it's not my fault. It's just unlucky. It's just the way things are. And that's one of the key things you should take from this video, is sometimes that is the case. Things happen and it's the way they are, and they knock us down, and they knock us down to the point where we don't want to get back up. And sometimes, you know, it's no use saying to somebody, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. We know that we don't want to, but sometimes it feels like we have to. We have to give up, even if it's just for a couple of days. We have to give up. And that's one of the key things you should take from this video, is sometimes that is the case. Things happen and it's the way they are, and they knock us down, and they knock us down to the point where we don't want to get back up. And sometimes, you know, it's no use saying to somebody, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. We know that we don't want to, but sometimes it feels like we have to. We have to give up, even if it's just for a couple of days. We have to give up so we can get ourselves back up again. And we already know that, and we don't need telling that in the nicest possible way. So, you know, I'm in this hostel again, but I'm 25 years old now, and I've been through enough experiences in my life to know what to do this time. And, you know, I'm not saying I've got all the magical answers there, but I said to myself, this time around, I'm not going to do nothing. And you might be looking at me now like I'm crazy, but I went into the hostel, I went up into my bedroom, I sat on my bed, and I didn't move for 8 months. And that is not a joke. I sat there in my room, locked away, and I said, you know what, I am sick and tired of chasing what I can't get, you know, thinking of impossible targets, trying to reach them, and then having myself not back down again. So, you know, my support worker said to me it could be up to a year before you get your own flat again. And this is what I want so bad, my own flat, so I could have my son overnights again. And I went up to my room and I said to myself, okay, well, 12 months, what else am I going to do for 12 months? I've been told I can't go back to work because I'm waiting for surgery. I've been told that I'm going to have to wait at least 12 months for my flat. So I just sat there and I said to myself, I'm going to be patient, no matter how depressed I feel, no matter how many times I close the curtain at 3 p.m. and I turn my Wi-Fi off because I don't want to speak to anyone. I don't even want to check my phone. Just the thought of turning my Wi-Fi off and hearing that ping was enough to send me back to sleep. You know, I just completely shut off for the world, from the world, and I just said, you know what, it's about me for once, man. I'm putting myself fucking first, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to stay patient, and I'm just going to wait for things to fall into place, and any little thing that I can do along the way to help that, I'll do it. But I ain't going to put myself out there again anymore because I keep failing. So I need to look at this from a different strategy now on how I can get my life secure and start building towards the future. And, you know, it was a long road, believe me, from having the surgery to not being able to walk, not just sitting at home for 8 months, but not being able to walk for 8 months was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life. And there's people probably there now saying, you know, there's people that are paralyzed, there's people that are this and that and this and that. And I understand that. And of course, that is going to be the most horrible thing you can go through. But another thing with mental health is, you know, something small, what might seem small to you might be huge to somebody else, and what might be huge to somebody else might be small to you. In my situation, it was huge to me because not only couldn't walk, I had no help from the NHS. I had several friends that abandoned me at the time. I had no help from family members. I had no support from physiotherapy until about 6 months after my operation. So I couldn't even take my own bins out. You know, there was trash piling up in my kitchen. I couldn't wash myself. These were real life, horrible situations that I found myself in, and I had to just live through. You know, luckily for me, I had the thought of my son. I had all my cats. One of them's over there asleep right now. And it just got me through each day. And I found myself, you know, the more I was getting through things, the more I started to feel just a tiny bit more positive. And then I thought, you know, I don't want to go back to certainly being homeless again, but I don't want to go back to ever feeling suicidal again. I don't want to ever feel like I don't want to be here, you know. And I mean, one of the things I thought of was my son, of course, because I thought to myself, how would he feel if I knew that I wanted to end my life? And it put a lot, you know, it hit me hard. It hit me really hard. So straight away, I then decided I am never going to threaten suicide again. As in, I am never going to say I'm going to do it and not do it. And then I am never going to say I am feeling suicidal, because I'm never going to allow myself to get to that point again. And I'm going to do a little bit each day to try and make me get there. And a lot of the time these days, it's the thoughts of the positive things I've done from previous days. that give me the motivation to keep going. You know, I find it very, very difficult if I've got nothing to do all day and I've got no plans and I'm just sitting on the sofa. That's when thoughts can start to creep in, and you think of things in your life that you want to be better, and you know they can't be possible right now. So you end up in this vicious cycle of mental illness, of these mental thoughts that drown your mind, and they make you want to shut the curtains and not do anything. So I don't want to be like that, and I didn't want to be like that anymore because I've suffered for over 20 years, you know what I mean? So I just said to myself each day, I've got to do something, or at least think, you know, I've got to do something. So it started off with exercise, which has now turned into an everyday thing, 6-7 days a week. Well, 6 days a week, so I let my body rest every now and again. But I go to the gym, and that helps so much. I completely changed my diet. This old routine I was stuck in of drinking Pepsi and eating crisps and chocolates, and 12 o'clock on the night going for a bowl of ice cream and things like this. I changed the way I was living, and now I wake up and I'm having a protein shake, then I'm having, you know, fresh chicken, then I'm having tuna and pasta, and I'm eating things like this now, while also taking multivitamin tablets, vitamin C and things like this, that all these things have come together over a compilation of 8 months, and it's just all fit and worked well. And you know, me trying to describe it probably doesn't sound so simple, but when you actually start to apply these little things to your life, it becomes simplified without you even realizing it, and it will be months later when you think back. Like for me personally, it was about 3 months ago, I was sitting on the sofa and I thought, you know, I haven't felt depressed for about 5 months now, and I thought to myself, I had to look at my calendar and my Facebook statuses and things like that and think, it actually has been that long, and I did that, you know. But there's plenty of other ways. I mean, there's plenty of other videos on YouTube of methods and ways that and things that you can do to try and help you. You know, because I'm not gonna sit here and say I can cure your mental illness. I believe I've cured mine, and that's the point here. We have to help each other and support each other, but only we can make the real changes that are going to really make a difference to your life and to your mental health. And that's something that we struggle to accept sometimes because of how the vicious cycle we get our brains in. But if we take a step back and just realize, okay, no matter how silly it sounds, or no matter how small or big this or that sounds, I need to put myself first, and I need to do it. Because if I don't, I am never going to get better. That's how it is. We have to force, in a way, that in a safe way, the positivity on ourselves in order to make the changes that we need to make. Now, I'm in the UK, and if you need some support, if you're with the ages of 16, between the ages of 16 and 24, you can go to St Basil's, and you can Google St Basil's, and they're amazing. I was with them from 16 till 24. Anytime I was in need, they were there, whether it was support, whether it was help with drug use, homelessness, finding a place to live, rent support, things like that. St Basil's are there for you. I use them, my younger sister has also used them, and many friends has also used them too. There is also a charity called Rethink Mental Health. As you can see, it's a long video when you're watching, and I hope you watch all the way through to the end, because there's a lot of really good stuff I think in this video. So the first video that I did on homelessness, and the first video I did on homelessness is correct, and anything in that video is correct. But it was kind of done when I was really depressed and in a low place, and I feel like I kind of rushed through it a little bit and didn't give as much detail as I probably should have. So I hope this video goes into a little bit more detail on homelessness and what it's like, and hopefully it opens up people's minds to the issue a little bit more, because there's a lot you can do. You don't have to, of course you don't have to, but the more people that have an open mind when it comes to homeless people and drug addicts, the more help these people are going to get, and it's as simple as that. So hopefully you've took something from this video, And if you are currently on drugs right now watching this and you're struggling with homelessness, don't end your life. Please don't end your life. Because I mean, there's so many times where I felt like I wanted to, believe me, but don't, because you can change your life, you really can. And I'm not just one of these people that's going 5 steps to change your life, subscribe now. I'm not one of those people at all, but I am proof that things can change, and that is what I've learned to accept about myself. I am proof that things can change, and I just hope to God that one day you can stand in front of a camera or stand in front of a mirror and say that you are proof that things can change too, and people's lives can change no matter what situation we're in. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Go over to Facebook, Survivors Elite. It's got a trophy symbol and like a face with red cheeks. Type in Survivors Elite into Facebook and join the mental health support group. We're close to 500 survivors now, and that's worldwide too. Last time I checked, there's about 27 different nationalities in this group, so it's global. Join the group and get some support, guys. We've got loads of great admins on there too, and there's loads of new videos coming as well that I've previously mentioned. So that's me done, that's me gone. I'm gonna go and do some walking, some cardio. I don't do cardio that often. I slack a bit with cardio. Who wants to fucking do cardio and fucking run around? Fuck that shit.